I think most obvious is the stopping the run game. So stopping the run game between the dual threat quarterback, Lamar Jackson. For 2024, Lamar Jackson on 21 attempts has 167 yards. He has an 8-yard average. His longest run's been 25 yards, and he has 1 touchdown off of a rush. And Derrick Henry's complimenting him with 31 attempts, 130 yards, 4.2 yards per attempt. His longest run's been 29 yards. So when you're looking at a powerhouse, like, I mean, collectively together, the two of them, they have, close to 300 yards. So in terms of like, what do they need to do? A couple points. Obviously, we saw Alvin Kamara just destroy the Cowboys on the perimeter run game. So looking at somebody like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, we need to really fill in those gaps and more specifically contain Lamar Jackson. So having those outside edge rushers contain him. I heard Zimmer after on the Monday press conference, they were asking, are they going to use DeMarvion Overshown as the QB spy on Lamar Jackson? He said, I don't know, it might be Micah. So obviously they're not going to tell the game plan on what's going to happen, but we need to see some discipline run defense from our guys. They have to hit their assignments. If you're
What was Lamar's rushing stats?
I have him down as 21 attempts for 167 yards.
21 attempts for 167 yards. So,
over 2 games.
So he's rushing for 80, just over 80 a game.
Yeah.
Just over for 80 a game and 1 touchdown. So that's pretty good. If you're the Lamar Jackson running the football is way better than any of the Cowboys running backs right now. And most of those runs are probably coming in on third down, passing down situations where the play breaks down. So you're saying you think you need to have a guy like Overshown or one of the speedier linebackers kind of spy him a little bit?
Well, yeah. So ultimately, a guy like Lamar Jackson, and when Cowboys play these dual threat QBs, they tend to let up a lot of yardage from that quarterback. So obviously, in terms of who the threat number one, it is going to be Lamar Jackson, and I think it's going to be on his feet, because if we can keep him in the pocket and force him to throw the ball.
You look at Lamar Jackson's rushing yards per game over his career, and it's all right in that area, which is crazy. He's right in that 50 to 60 yard rushing. And right now he's on pace to have one of his better seasons rushing. Granted, it's only the 2 games, but when it comes to rushing, who's more important to stop, you guys think, Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson?
Derrick Henry. If Derrick Henry rushes for over 100 yards, they have a 70% chance at winning the game.
So he hasn't ran for more than 70 yards in either of the first games?
Well, no, he has a 70. The Ravens have a 70% chance.
They unlucky hit that.
So
30%.
he has to hit above 100 yards in a game.
He had over 100 yards this season.
No, I don't know.
And that's probably why they're 0-2.
Yeah.
So you're saying if Derrick Henry has over 100 yards, and I feel like that's kind of anytime the Cowboys play anyone, when a running back runs for more than 100 yards, how often do the Cowboys win that game? Just on personal experience without even stats involved, how often does it feel like when a running back's the best player on the field, do the Cowboys lose when it's the opposing team? Almost every time.
I don't know that they have lost when the Cowboys have had the best running game on the field.
No, sorry. I mean, like at the opposing team. Like if the opposing team has a guy over 100 yards, the Cowboys essentially lose the game.
Yeah. They don't play well against, especially when it's one player who's getting not like a committee.
Yeah, you think back to any times this year it was Alvin Kamara, obviously. Last year it was Singletary or Cook, with the Bills, who had a bunch of yards and just ran over the Cowboys. I just can't remember a time where the Dallas Cowboys faced a running game that played well and then they were still in the game. It's like it totally takes their whole defensive minds out of it. And the Cowboys defense just isn't really built to stop the run. We've talked about this since CanFan's been in existence, that we need to have these big defensive tackles and these linebackers that can stop the run. And speaking from 2024, it felt like against the Browns, maybe they had the blueprint, but you were playing against a guy like Jerome Ford, who isn't in the same league as a guy like Alvin Kamara, and definitely isn't in the league as a guy like Derrick Henry. So I agree with Ad that if you're thinking of a guy you have to stop from running, you can't let Derrick Henry take over the game. You can't let him have 100+ yards and multiple touchdowns.
Yeah, and Deshaun Watson, we saw Overshown spy Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson has mobility, but he's not as elusive as Lamar Jackson. Listen to this stat, and then we can move on to one of your Lamar Jackson. When he rushes for over 75 yards, they have a 67% win rate for their games. So if Lamar Jackson starts to rush the ball more and he rushes for more than 75 yards in a game, there's a 67% chance, which also doesn't seem that high. Like it's just above 50%. But if Lamar Jackson is moving the ball with his feet, we're going to have problems. And I think it just opens up far more plays. You do have, again, that dual threats for tight ends. So I think keeping him contained in the pocket is going to be key, and then hoping everybody else does their assignments. You know, that disciplinary on the defense is going to be critical. Not to mention when you talk about the run game, what happened? Our guys were weak on the run, so our guys were getting bullied by the Saints' offensive line. We can't come into week 3 and have our defensive line get pushed around by Ravens.
Like a bunch of little...
Yeah, they need to get in there.
Well, it could be a rough one, knowing all this rushing and then that center of the field's weak. But hey,
how nice would you guys feel if the Cowboys do limit this rushing team like the Ravens, who, like Ad said, have very good rushing at quarterback and at running back? How nice would it be if the Cowboys defense bounces back against Baltimore and holds them to, I mean, I'm saying even if you hold them as a team under 135 yards, I think that's a pretty good win. I mean, as a team, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to get Lamar Jackson averages over 60 yards this year, but his career, he's averaged pretty close to 60. And then Derrick Henry's, well, we all know Derrick Henry. So if they can keep the Ravens to under 135 yards, I think that would be a huge win and will definitely help the game plan.
I also think it's stopping those rushes where they're pivotal, like 3rd and longs, those types of scenarios, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, stopping those. Because if it's 1st and 10 and Jackson breaks off a 10 or 12 yard run, okay, that sucks.
Yep.
But we're expecting a couple of those throughout the game, right?
Absolutely.
It's the ones that have the opportunity to get the ball back without the Ravens being able to put any points on the board.
They're soul crushing for fans. Imagine what it's like. You've been on the field for 8 plays and you get this team to 3rd and 8 and they pick up
You've locked down the coverage.
Yeah, then they pick up a scramble or something and end up picking it up. So stopping the running games.
It's demoralizing.
Oh, right. The key to beating the Ravens with shutting one of the reasons anyway, shutting down the running attack so that Lamar Jackson has to throw is essentially what you're getting at.
Has to throw, especially in those moments where he wants to run. An obvious one, however, much different details than what I've been hearing. So,
what were some of the other details that you were thinking? Because you could add some pie to the top. This is a friendly chat.
No, I'm just saying it's obvious. Actually, haven't really heard anything broken down in detail. Really, I'm just saying it's obvious that when you ask, it's like, oh, you got to stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry.